continue to move forward, we need to have the greatest protection. And that's why the partnership with CrowdStrike, honestly, I'm super grateful for them being a part of the team. As you see, since we've been a part with them, we've managed to step our game up. And that's because of the security we have.
Hello and welcome. I am delighted to be joined today by three individuals at the very top of their game. We're going to look at the way in which they've built winning teams, have succeeded as individuals, but also look a little bit deeper into this unprecedented year, how they've adapted, how they've evolved, and also a little bit about what their futures might look like. I'm delighted to be joined today by CrowdStrike CEO George Kurtz. George, welcome.
Thank you.
From Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team principal and CEO Toto Wolff. Toto, hello.
Hi.
And Mercedes six-time Formula One World Drivers' Champion, Lewis Hamilton. Lewis, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Guys, I've just mentioned you there as individuals, and I guess whether it's George yourself would have seen you on CNN and beyond, Toto running the team, and Lewis fairly clearly as an athlete, we look at your individual successes, but of course, not only are you leaders of teams, but you're very much part of a bigger team as well. So I want to look at that just to start off with. I want to get an understanding, Lewis, maybe starting with you. We know how important teamwork is, but I wonder in your successes, how important do you think team culture has been to success?
Well, this is probably a really good question for Toto, actually, because he's the one that's helped create the culture within our team. But you say you know how important teamwork is. I don't think a lot of people watching generally realize just how much teamwork is happening in the background. And you switch on to the weekend and you see two cars go around and think that that's all they've done. But there's so much work that goes on in the back of the factory, and obviously on the weekend. And even during the weekend, the amount of information that's been sent back to the factory and for analysis and then brought back to the track to help us continue to step forward is huge. But I think naturally having, what's been a real surprise for me is I joined here 8 years ago, I think it is, but to see our growth, to see even with all the success we have, everyone continues to elevate and raise the bar. And I think that's really about the culture, the teamwork. No one's above anybody. And there's a great dialogue within, everyone's talking and communicating. I think that's a real key element to how we're able to do what we do.
Well, you mentioned Toto, they're sort of building that team culture. And Toto, I've heard you talk before about having a no-blame culture, but you're amongst friends here now and talking privately. Do you really have a no-blame culture in the team? And if so, why, I guess, and how has that worked?
Well, obviously, thank you, Lewis, for giving me credit here. I think we have an organization where we have all together built that culture. And for me, the culture is almost like the immune system of an organization. And it's not just the no-blame culture, but it is so much more. It's about true empowerment. It is about giving authority, responsibility, and foremost accountability to people. Only when people see that they are contributing and it's measurable, you make them part of the success. And on the no blame culture situation is that you can't create an environment where people are scared to innovate or where people are scared to take decisions. And this is what we have really provided. There is no hire and fire policy at Mercedes like in some other teams. There is no internal politics. I wouldn't allow that at all. Politics we do externally to provide us with the best framework of regulations, but internally we are not accepting that. And that's why over the years we have created a safe environment, an environment where people speak to each other. And what Lewis mentioned, communication is so important, because we will sometimes disagree with each other, but if we share the same objectives about being successful, we will always come to a compromise, and the outcome will be the best situation. And if there is disjointed objectives, one needs to talk about it and to say, okay, this is your objective, this is my objective. How can we reach a situation that is a win-win situation and therefore continue to make it a success for all of us? But what I remember very clearly was my first day in Mercedes. Funnily enough, it was together. Luis and I started together in the team at the beginning of 2013. And Ross Braun, who back then led the team, got all the people in a room in a sort of town hall and introduced me. And obviously Ross is an iconic person, and he said, Toto is the new shareholder and is going to be the CEO. And I had the possibility to speak to the people, and I said, we're going to get the Daimler commitment and we're going to grow the available resources. And I think I can contribute in certain areas. And then the town hall finished. And the last person to leave the room was a guy from the machine shop floor. And he passed me, looked at me and said, nice words. We'll see what happens. And I recall this. It's about doing things that you say. Many organizations can put a PowerPoint on the wall, say great or discuss great things, discuss the theory, and the HR department is going to be involved. But if you haven't got the empathy, if you haven't got the values in terms of sticking to what you say, you're going to fail. And this is why the authentic leadership and transparent communication is so important.
I'm going to come back to authenticity a little bit later, Toto, but you mentioned early in that talking about innovation and the way how important it is to foster that, and it literally mirrors some of the words from CrowdStrike and George with your chief product officer looking at that no blame culture and trying to foster that innovation. I know you and Toto know each other, so I don't know if there's been a crossover there, but I just wonder how that's worked as CrowdStrike and how it's helped you move forward.
Well, that's been a big part of our culture. When you look at security, it's a very fast-moving field. The adversary is moving quick, and you have to be able to adapt. And part of our culture is driving innovation. It's coming up with things that have never been done before. I mean, what we've done at CrowdStrike to deliver cloud-based endpoint protection, I can tell you when I started the company in 2011, people literally laughed at me, and people that I had worked with, and they said, this thing is never going to work and it's going to fail. And we came up with things that have never been done before, and the size and the scale of the data that we handle and how we actually operate. So we really encourage our people to drive innovation. We actually have various contests across the year, we call Think Week, to come up with the latest and greatest really crazy ideas that we can drive through and commercialize. And that really gives a new lease on life to people in the company, right? They realize they're not doing the same old. And, maybe half the stuff doesn't work, but half of it does. I think there's an analog to Formula One where, there's always trying new things and new bits on the car and, new aero and, some stuff works, some stuff doesn't. But at the end of the day, if you're not innovating, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. And that's really what we wanted to instill at the culture at CrowdStrike.
Yeah, again, talking of that culture, Toto, you mentioned authenticity, and I said that talking about teams, we'll come back to it later. But again, I want to focus on you three as individuals, because for those that don't know you, they would assume you're quite different. George, obviously a tech background, Toto, an entrepreneur, an investor, and now running an F1 team, and Luis as a sports person. But actually, as I've got to know you three guys over time, there's so many similarities, kind of shared values, shared morals, and for me, it's authenticity is one of the things that really shines through with all of you guys. Luis, I've spoken to members and those that are close to you before about this, just saying that how important being authentic is to you as an individual, but also in the people that you work with and come across. Just wonder how key that's been for you.
I think you have to be yourself. You have to be in an environment where you feel you can be yourself. And, that's something that I feel that Mercedes and Toto allowed me to be me. I've gone through a lot of growing experiences whilst I've been here at the team. But yeah, the authenticity, I think, is coming back to the communication, being able to say what you want to say and not be, as Toto has mentioned earlier on, just not having to hide or be nervous of making mistakes. We win and we lose as a team. So the great thing, I've seen every single individual here puts a lot of pressure on themselves to be the best they can be, but we all make mistakes, and And what I've seen a lot of growth over the years is that everyone's open to speaking about those mistakes and saying, okay, it was me, and then just really hard on working to improve moving forwards. But yeah, I think it's something you learn along the way in the process of growing together and closer as a team.
I said we want to look at individuals, and I think it's funny when you look at a team and if you're trying to motivate a team, the reality is that they're all made up of individuals, and it's how when you're running or managing a large team, you can dilute that down to one individual person. And Toto, I remember an old story about you choosing quite a unique method of doing that by picking out team members having to pick out images of adversaries, if you like. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, there's many ways about motivating the individuals that work for your team. And at the end of the day, we are only as good as our people are. And a thing that I found very helpful for me personally is to make it clear to you every single day who you're actually fighting. And by choosing that enemy and identifying that enemy, for me at least, I'm going to think twice about going home too early or about dropping the ball in a certain situation. And I encourage everybody in the team to find out. Back in the day, Red Bull was our biggest frenemy, to identify everybody in the Red Bull team who is doing the same job. And I mean, literally everybody. Facility management, housekeeping, the guy at the gate, and everybody did that. And it was funny because a few months later, I walked through the company and I could see these various faces being glued to the desks or being in the notebooks of certain people. Until today, our head of HR, Paul Mills, carries the photo of the lady who leads HR in Red Bull. And it reminds you every day that you're fighting. And Luis and I talked about it because when you look at the Michael Jordan documentary, he very much functioned in the same way. He identified somebody that annoyed him, somebody that they gave him a wrong look, and it made him just perform on a different level. And I think that is a useful tool, but of course it's not the only one. I think truly you need to be motivated from within you, and you need to continue to develop yourself and be a better you tomorrow than you have been today. And that is something which we really try to embrace. And Luis has been a great role model for that, because we see him drive the car, we see him operate in the debriefing room and be with our partners. And since 2013, there has been just such a transition into this unbelievable pillar of our team. And we talk about it a lot. And it's not easy because you need to question yourself every single day. But the self-improvement and the self-reflection is tremendously important.
I'm going to talk to Luis about that in a second, but George, I got to bring you in here because Toto talking there about sort of adversary images is quite a nice segue into adversary art. And I just wondered what the kind of philosophy and the idea was behind that at CrowdStrike. I guess, normally we would associate cyber threats in quite a techie and sort of clinical way, but you guys have decided to visualize that in artwork.
Yeah, we have. And that was one of the things when I started the company. I really wanted to sort of humanize the fact that these attacks are not just electronic. There's actually people behind them, people behind the keyboard, people stealing data, people encrypting your data files and ruining your kids' pictures that you're never going to see again. So we've created these adversaries, whether it's bears or pandas, and we give them names and cool artwork. But it's just to remind people that at the end of the day, it's not just computers, right? There's somebody behind the attack and there's someone who has to defend them. And just like Toto talked about it, and I love that story. First time I heard it was on a podcast that he did. But every day you need to look at your own adversary, right? And you have to say, how am I going to beat, this nation state actor, or how am I going to beat this e-crime group? And that's what our people at CrowdStrike are focused on. Our mission at CrowdStrike is to get up every day and stop breaches, right? And unless you have something in front of you that's tangible, not abstract, people tend to forget that. So I think putting it into a picture format, people like it, it's cool. People in the security industry love that sort of, comic book sort of look, but it's real people, real adversaries, real countries behind these devastating attacks, and we certainly want to make sure that we don't forget that on a daily basis.
Yeah, Lewis, talking about that and adversaries, I'm guessing you haven't got a picture of Sebastian Vettel or Fernando Alonso. For those watching who haven't been aware, obviously, that this incredible period of success you've been through, Lewis, has been against some of the greatest of all time. I mentioned there Fernando Alonso, Sebastian Vettel, these amazing champions. During your career, how much, or now let's say, how much do you focus on the guy in the car next to you and the way he's going to drive, and how much is just concentrating on the job in hand?
So honestly, I think when I was younger, I would definitely look at others, and if I'm honest, personally, that's distracting. I think at the end of the day, I can't control what everyone else is doing, but what I can do is improve and look internally. So honestly, at the end of each year, and obviously we won these championships, I'm always thinking to myself, how can I be better? How can I better myself? And a lot of the times, I think we get in our own way when it comes to improving. We get in our own heads, and we make some things more complicated than they are. So I'm generally just looking internally, trying to figure out how I can be a better, teammate. I'm looking at how I can be a better driver all round in qualifying, in practice, in terms of the feedback that I give, in terms of consistency. I think this year, particularly, qualifying has come back to where it should be. In terms of what I'm supposed to do, but that's just working on trying to be the best version of myself every day. And so it's a little bit different. I don't have a picture of anybody else, but I do understand that. And if we are in qualifying or in practice, and the other team starts getting ahead of us, of course we can for a split second have a look over there and see kind of red appear. And we have a target, but as I said, generally I think it goes back to empowering people, working with engineers, spending time with everyone, and giving them the ability to contribute even more so to the result.
It's very natural, I think, to just see you guys as kind of born winners with the success that you've had. But of course, you're not born necessarily to win, and it hasn't always been this way. And I think it's more interesting maybe to focus on some of the days that haven't gone quite so well, and some of the failures are maybe what you've learned from them. George, just start with yourself. If you can think of any key times, is that ability to bounce back, and as well as that, you've got people looking and focusing on you as a leader to see how you react. I just wonder how you've grown maybe as an individual and then as a business as you've coped with those moments.
Well, I think you learn a lot from your losses, and that's one of the things that really helps motivate us. And I always ask the question, folks, what drives you more? Is it your will to win or your hatred to lose? And I can tell you, I hate to lose. And I know as a company, we hate to lose. And I think we've learned a lot from our losses. Like, you're not going to win every one of them, but you want to win more than you lose. And did you lose a big deal because your product wasn't up to snuff? Or did you not execute well on the sales side? Did you not have the right relationships? And, we take those away. We spend a lot of time analyzing not only the wins, but the losses to figure out what we can do better. And, whether it's increasing our efforts on the sales side, or whether it's, coming up with a better integrated ROI story for how somebody's going to buy the product, we look at all that stuff. And I made plenty of mistakes. I think some of my bigger mistakes have been on, hires that I've made that didn't work out, right? It comes back to teamwork. If you have people playing for the name on the back of the jersey rather than the front of the jersey, they could be the best person in the world, but they basically interrupt the flow of the team and throw the whole dynamic off. So I've learned a lot from hiring and just making sure that we've, even if you got the best people, if they don't have the right chemistry, it doesn't really matter. And I say that's one of the biggest takeaways, where I am now in my career versus earlier in my career is, finding the right people. And if it doesn't work out, give them a hug on the way out, and, we got to move on. But it's always having the best team around you.
Toto, I want to talk about that and some of the moments that we've seen. You've had this period of incredible success, and I don't want to highlight them too much, but there's been weekends when you've been destined to go out and take victory, and it's just slipped through your fingers at the last moment. You've got to deal with the world's press. You've got to deal with the team members who've built the car, and then you've sometimes got to deal with two drivers who are fighting for their own world championships as well as the team. I just wonder for you how those moments, how you've recovered and come back strong at the next race.
It is important to acknowledge that, for example, for the driver situation, obviously the two drivers have different objectives. They care for the team and they want to make the team win a constructor championship because they are part of the team. But on the other side, the most important is for a driver is to win a race and eventually win the driver championship. And this is something we are very well aware. And what we are trying to do is just to provide an equal battling field or playing field in total transparency. And I had a chat a few years ago with Alain Prost, who is one of the most iconic racing drivers, and he raced against Ayrton Senna. And they badly fell out at the end of their stint at McLaren. And I said, what actually happened between the two of you? And he said, it was the lack of transparency from the top management. You were never sure whether you were the flavor of the month. There would be Chinese whispers within the team. The drivers were played against each other, and you were on your own. And so this is something which I very much try to avoid by honest and transparent communication. And speaking about the bad days, I think personally for me, the pain of losing is just so much more intense and lasts so many days. And what we have taken from that situation, rather than dwell about the loss, is to acknowledge the pain because we are all very competitive, but to say what has actually happened. And you rarely leave a racetrack when you won and say, why did we win? But when you lose, that question is the first question that comes on the table. Why did we lose? And analyzing the reasons and working through the data makes you improve. And so we had situations where we lost the race, where we made mistakes, and we were coming out the next race weekend as if it didn't happen. But the truth was, we acknowledged that we make mistake. And it's not just a single mistake, it's many mistakes, but we don't do them again.
Lewis, I want to talk about mental strength in recovering from failures. And I want to give you an example because as an individual, I admired it so much. But we look really early in your career, 2007, you had the chance to be the first ever rookie world champion, no fault of your own. The car's left out at China and you end up in the gravel. You ultimately were leading that race, didn't get the points and missed out on the championship by a point. We cut forward 1 year later, you're back in China under the same immense pressure. And myself, as a fan watching you, I was incredibly nervous, and you went out and it was the perfect race almost. You dominated the race, took victory, and ultimately became world champion that year. How did you fight those demons? How did you deal with that, being back in the same place? Many of us would just be concerned about the same moment happening again. How did you push that to the back of your mind and allow yourself to step forward and be the best you could be?
Geez, that was a long time ago. But I do remember.
It still makes me nervous now.
It's still a painful experience for me too. Losing the world championship in my first year, it was a lot to get used to. I only just come into fame. I was on the big TV, and there was a lot of pressure from sponsors and team, and again from myself. Losing was one of the hardest things, I think. And as Toto and George spoke of, winning is a great thing. But when you win, it's very difficult to pinpoint either why or what you could do better. When you lose, it's a painful pill to swallow. And it definitely took me time to recover from that. I was only 22, so I was still learning about myself. One thing is just I was massively determined. So I think with determination and just never giving up, you're eventually going to get there. But I think I came back into the next season, started off the season with a win. And it was close again, and I definitely did feel towards the end that same experience that I felt the previous year could come back. But if you dwell on those moments, then perhaps it will. So I think what I've learned to teach myself is just you can't change the past. For whatever reason it's happened, but what you can do is work to be a better you and a better version of you moving forwards and shape the future. So that's what I even if I have so whenever I ever have a bad day or a bad race, I've learned over the years, and it's 10 years, whatever it is, to be able to let go and acknowledge that, failure is actually the key to success. If you look at as Toto has mentioned, Michael Jordan, everyone out there, I think that is successful. I'm sure with George, there's been plenty of failures along the way. It's just that people don't see necessarily that. They see the tip of the iceberg where you're succeeding, but there's a lot of difficult, hard times on the way up, which are, they say character building, which it really is. You notice over the years. But mental strength, I think, is just continuing to believe in yourself, believing that you eventually will get there, and just you communicating with people, and really, I've become a better driver because I collaborate so much better with all my mechanics and engineers. I think that I'm that much of a better teammate than I was in 2008.
It's amazing when you talk, Lewis, about sort of never giving up. It's kind of one of the mantras, and those that work closely with you or even following you as a fan, we hear that and we win and lose together. And if I look, George, at CrowdStrike or Toto at Mercedes, what I'm interested in, I think, as you run a business, is how you create a mantra or a sort of mission objective that everyone follows. George, if I travel around the world and speak to people at CrowdStrike, everyone buys into and really believes in the journey, and it's sort of a similar tone of voice in the way they speak about the business and the excitement and passion. Toto, same thing. If I go to the factory at Mercedes, whether I'm speaking to senior management, right the way through the business, everyone feels like they want to sort of run through the wall to get to the next goal. George, start with yourself. How do you create that it runs through a business, that people have bought into the journey and they're willing to go through anything? So I guess it's the opposite. It's not going through the wall. It's building the wall that no one can get through from CrowdStrike's side.
Well, a big part of our success has really been the mission and purpose focus as a company. And when I started the company, we said that we don't have a mission statement. We're on a mission. And that was it. That was our mission statement. We're on a mission. We're on a mission to stop breaches. And it's very easy. It's super simple. Everybody gets up every day, and that's something you can easily remember and get behind. And we do have a lot of people that came from the military and public service. And they could do lots of things, but they're focused on protecting our customers. And if a customer has an issue, we take it personally. And I think it's that level of mission and purpose. We're not building tweets, and we're not building, home pages and links and all this other stuff. We literally get up and we fight the bad guys every day. We just do it electronically. And that's incredibly rewarding for people on a professional level. We've been successful, so it's been rewarding on a financial level. But that's not what really motivates a lot of our people at CrowdStrike. It's doing the right thing, highest integrity, helping our customers. And I can tell you, if a customer has a problem or an issue, we find stuff in the middle of the night. We can't get a hold of the customer. It's like a fire drill. People wake me out of bed saying, "Hey, can you call the CEO? Who do you know? There's an issue," because we just won't let it lie. And, that's why people like CrowdStrike, it's really our fanatic level to customer success. And we take it personally if there's an issue. And it's that mission that's been very, very effective in keeping us successful. And we never forget it every day we wake up and we go to work.
Yeah, I think a customer said before, when I deal with CrowdStrike, I feel like if I got breached, it would be like they got breached. And I think that's an amazing thing, to feel like you're sort of in it together. It's clear that the sort of, whether it's CrowdStrike or Mercedes, that mission's clear, and the target, there's not many businesses, I guess, that aren't motivated either necessarily specifically by money or medals. There's a different success and goal at play. Once you've achieved that and you've got brilliant people working, my next question is, how do you keep those people around you? Because maintaining that core of those top people must be a challenge. Toto, it's something that the team have done brilliantly over the years, is maintaining top engineers, top people and talent, and people wanting to stay and part of it. How have you managed that?
Most important is to create an environment where people enjoy working, where people are encouraged to grow, and where you acknowledge that you don't want to create bottlenecks. We have great leaders and heads of departments that realize there is a next generation coming up, and that we have to create these opportunities for these guys. And we have so far been successful in keeping the team together, but without freezing it or considering it as a static organization to say, we are successful today, that's why we got to keep the organization like it is and hold on, but more seeing it as a dynamic structure to say, we're good today because of this reason, or we are not good enough because of that reason. Where do we see ourselves in the future? And we have a very complex but thought through system of analyzing the performance of our individuals. And we have this core group where only 2% of our population fall in, and then another group of 5%, which is the outstanding guys and the excellent guys. And we will try to create these opportunities. At the same time, our very senior leaders know that there will come a time where they need to change their role, whether it is within the organization, in a different department, or in a mentoring role, or in a consultancy role, or within the wider universe of Daimler. And so far, we haven't lost any of those people to the competition. And at the same time, we have brought up the next generation of bright guys. And I think this is tremendously important.
You mentioned there, Toto, looking to the future, and I want to do exactly that. Sort of, for example, George, how far ahead do you look as a business? How far do you plan when you're looking to the future?
We spend a lot of time planning 3 and 5 years out. What's coming down the road? What sort of threats are we going to have to deal with? What's the technology shift? And really, security just parallels the technology curve, right? If you think about cloud computing and all the latest and greatest of technologies that are out there, 5G, those all need security. So we're really thinking about, what's the next area of innovation and how do we get ahead of it? And, it's a forward thinking. It's not just the quarterly 90 days in front of us, that rat race that you can get into. It's thinking about what can really change the game. And that's really what put us on the map. I started the company in 2011 and, we really came into our own in 2018, 19, and 20. I mean, almost 10 years later, but it's that level of patience that we had. We didn't take shortcuts to get to where we're at. And we're doing a lot of innovation right now for 3 and 4 and 5 years out that are going to pay dividends, not only to our customers, but obviously to our companies and our shareholders.
Brilliant. Lewis, to yourself, the future. I'm very interested because you're a man of many talents, obviously incredible success in Formula One, but those watching around the world, they may not know you as an F1 driver. It might be the amazing work you've done with Tommy Hilfiger or the fact that you've been singing with Christina Aguilera. I just wonder what the future holds for Lewis Hamilton.
That's a good question. Well, I mean, I'm 35. I'm one of the probably second oldest driver here in Formula One. But what's crazy is I feel young as ever. I feel as driven, if not more, than when I was a kid, when I was 22. I feel fitter, more focused, and I enjoy what I do even more than I did back then. So, I think naturally I'm going to continue to do the other things because I think in life it's all about trying to find a balance for all of us. I think we get so stuck into the work, and sometimes things that we're also passionate about fall to the side. So I'm naturally just trying to find a balance. I have no idea what the future holds, but right now the sole focus is continuing to help this team break records. Every year we come back and we raise the bar, and we have people chasing us, and it's not easy to lead. I've always generally found in the race, it's easier to chase. But being in the lead and staying in the lead is, I have to say, is almost harder than catching someone up. So
I'm sure you'll keep working hard on that. And as you're not someone who puts boundaries on things, I'm interested to see what the future holds. And Toto, to yourself, looking into the future, looking backwards, I just wonder, you've achieved so much already with the team, and I know you've been through a period of reflection recently. I just wonder, as you go forwards and look back, what would you like to add to your achievements, not just in Formula One, but beyond? Is there anything outstanding you think, wow, I'd love to tick that off?
Obviously, before I joined Formula One, I had a career in finance, and I really enjoyed that with a passion for motor racing. And I find myself in the situation today to co-own a company with Daimler, to be in charge of such a fantastic group of people, the best drivers in the car, these amazing engineers with extraordinary curriculums that work within the team. And I just enjoy so much to be with all these guys. And that is actually a problem, because you kind of say to yourself, what else is there out there that could be more enjoyable than what we do? But at the same time, you have to reflect, am I as good as I was at the beginning? I don't want to go from excellent to good. How much am I contributing? Is there still, do I still feel the same purpose and energy as the beginning? And this is why we all owe it to the company and our people to have that kind of reflection and come up with the right decisions. And for me, clearly, I'd like to stay within this group of people. I really enjoy to work with them. Luis and I have found a great relationship, and I think we thrive and we are keen in achieving more success, and all that gives me the greatest pleasure. And I was asked by a journalist a few days ago, what is the place you enjoy, where's the place that you enjoy most to be? And I had to reflect, and I found out actually in the garage. I like to be in the garage and see the mechanics working, taking a car apart. There is 1,000 Lego pieces on the floor, and they just put it together within an hour. And I'm just a silent observer from the side, and seeing that is just amazing. It gives me the greatest of feelings.
It's an amazing thing to see a Formula One car worked on in a garage. George, I've got to bring the same question to you, and I'm really interested in your response because CrowdStrike has come such a long way in such a relatively short period of time. And I wonder, again, if you look a long way into the future and look back, what is it you can see the next steps? We saw the IPO last year and the great success of that, but I know for you that's not enough. What can you see as being the next big thing you'd like to achieve?
Well, when we went through the IPO process, it was a fantastic event. But as I told everybody in the company and externally, it was the green flag, not the checker flag, right? You can't be complacent, and for me, we've had a lot of success as a company. I've had success, but I think it's just the beginning. I think it's just the beginning of what CrowdStrike can do. When I look at a Salesforce or a Workday or a ServiceNow, I feel we could be that pillar of cloud computing specific to the security cloud. And that's really what I'm focused on. I couldn't find anything else that I love to do more than be here at CrowdStrike and fighting the bad guys and building a great company. Because every day, every day nothing goes 100%, right? There's always bumps and bruises, and you overbreak the turn sometime, right? And you just got to recover from it, shall we say? And that's what we do. And I'm having a fantastic time at CrowdStrike. I love the team. I love how many lives we've changed in terms of what we've been able to do for people on the CrowdStrike team. And more importantly, keeping our customers safe. We protect a lot of the largest companies out there, including companies like Zoom, which we recently mentioned. So these critical infrastructures, everything that we focus on in our lives, we're probably touching somewhere behind the scenes. And that's incredibly rewarding for me. And, I couldn't think of having more fun in a professional level other than maybe being a Formula One driver.
Luis, you and the team work so hard to develop the car to move things forward, and you're obviously traveling all around the world with sensitive data going back and forwards. Just how important is the sort of umbrella of security that you're able to now have access to thanks to CrowdStrike to yourself and the team?
I think it's invaluable. Honestly, we've got so much data going from the track every single day, but also particularly at the end of the weekend, downloading of everything that we do goes back to the factory and is analyzed and then is sent back. So we're in a sport that everything's very private. I think we live in a world today where it's even more important to have privacy, as George was mentioning, just how many enemies are out there hacking and getting into people's personal data. So I think it's more important than ever, especially with all our competitors. And we have 9 other teams who would love to know anything they could about what we do, how we work internally. So if you just watch the race, and there are things that we can say on the wall, and there's things that we can't say, like when I'm in the car, because the feed goes back to the cameras, and the other teams hear everything we say. Like just before a stop, for example, we leave it right to the last minute to confirm that we're doing a pit stop because the others are listening. So there's just, and that's just one aspect. Just given as an example, to continue to move forward, we need to have the greatest protection. And that's why the partnership with CrowdStrike, honestly, I'm super grateful for them being a part of the team. As you see, since we've been a part with them, we've managed to step our game up. And that's because of the security we have.
We've talked about synergies between the two companies, but one thing we haven't talked about is the partnership between Mercedes-AMG Petronas and CrowdStrike. And I know both you guys are fiercely competitive. I know that you're on track together earlier this year having some fun, but I think the synergies go far beyond that in the partnership. George, what was the reason behind the sort of link up with Mercedes?
Well, I think it starts with the organization and the leadership of the team, right? And you look at Mercedes, spotless reputation, obviously a winning heritage, but also high integrity. And that's important for us, right? We want to be involved with companies that, at the top of their game, and certainly we can provide value too. And I think we're providing a lot of value to protecting their critical infrastructure, and as much data that moves around and how critical it is, it's a real exposure, potential exposure. So we love the team, we love the brand, and we love the people. And, Toto and I get along really well. We see things eye to eye. He's an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur, and he runs things like a real company. And this is not just, a hobby for what these guys do. Obviously it's a big business, but there's a passion behind it. And it's at the highest level of their game. Like, they are the best in their sport. They've dominated for so many years. And we love the fact that we can be associated with it. We love the fact that we can be a small part in the team. And it's been a great partnership thus far, and we look forward to the future.
Yeah, and Toto, talking about the success that you've achieved as a team, I guess one of the benefits off the back of that is you're in the fortuitous position that a lot of people want a partnership with a team. So I want to ask sincerely, why then? Why CrowdStrike? Why was it right for you to link together as partners?
I read about CrowdStrike long before we met, as a growing company, fast-growing company with the best technology in cybersecurity. And for us, as George and Louis alluded to, it is all about intellectual property. It is about secure data transfer, secure data storage. I personally was a victim of a hack on my phone a few years ago, so I recognized the importance of that. And when we met, we were just on the same wavelengths. I mean, in the first time I saw George, I knew that we can be partners for a long time, and it would be a mutual beneficial partnership. And I hope that CrowdStrike benefits from the association. I think on the business side, we were able to contribute. And on the other side, we are extremely proud in taking CrowdStrike to the world, in showcasing their technology, and in partnering with the best brand, I'd say the leader in the future. I have no doubt that George and CrowdStrike will be the leaders in that sector.
Toto, it's obviously been an unprecedented year with changes across the board with the team in particular. We know George and CrowdStrike have talked about the huge surge in cyber threats. I just want to understand how you as an operation have been able to change and evolve and do so while safely protecting your data.
I think this has been a crazy year. I mean, I can feel it from myself. I'm almost out of sync. Our race calendar started much later than it would normally be. And of course, it has changed the way we work. In Formula One, we had a mandatory shutdown whilst the lockdown has happened. So all teams have agreed to put the arms down for many weeks. And when that was opened up, obviously, every team tried to continue to develop their cars. And we created working stations from home. The engineers had their CAT stations at home, and it was about how can we transfer information, data, and IP from home into the factory, into the wind tunnel, into the CFD clusters. And we didn't think that was possible before, but thanks to the help of CrowdStrike, they were just right there when we needed them.
So, George, unprecedented year, unprecedented times. We've seen this huge surge. I just wonder how a company like CrowdStrike, how you've been able to cope and deal with not only, I imagine, a high demand, but also that huge change in threat.
Well, we've seen the threat landscape increase dramatically. We're 154% year-over-year increase in just threat activity that we've seen with our Overwatch team. So, as I like to say, the adversaries don't shelter in place, and they've been very active trying to take advantage of COVID, right? And the chaos that it has actually caused. If you think about everyone, they're working from home, they're on their home systems, behind their routers, they're on Zoom, and they just don't have the protections they've had in the past. So, we've been fortunate that, our customers have really embraced what we've built. We've helped them in a time of need because lots of folks were scrambling, probably customers that became customers after the fact, after the pandemic, but they were scrambling. How are they going to get operational? How are they going to protect those remote users? And we've been able to do that. So we've certainly benefited from the success of, our efforts in helping people. But I think longer term, it's really part of digital transformation and what we call security transformation. As people think about moving to the cloud and sort of operating in a post-pandemic world, you're going to need the likes of CrowdStrike to be able to protect those systems and cloud workloads. On the employee side, we had a lot of remote employees, which was great before the pandemic, but we've gone to basically all remote. We've made it all work. I think people, feel a little bit strained. Monday turns into Friday. Every day is a Zoom day, and it all just runs together. But hopefully we'll get through this soon enough. And I think us, like many other companies, will actually come out of it stronger.
George, Lewis, Toto, thank you all so much. Just fascinating insights and details from all of you there. Thanks for an incredible conversation.